Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Charan. In this video tutorial, I will explain in Blazor application how to implement the crud functionality, create, reading, updating and delete functionality with a bootstrap model pop-up. And here we got the final output, crud. Right now in this table contains 3 records. If we check in our database table, I'm executing the table. See here we got 3 records, Charan, James and Peter. Charan, James and Peter. Now let's add a new record. Ben, his department is sales and his salary is 18,000. Save changes. See here we got the Ben record has been added successfully. If we check in our database table, execute, see Ben details is inserted successfully. Let's edit the Ben details, or let's edit the Peter details. The Peter name I want to change to Peter to com. Save changes. See here the employee name has been changed from Peter to com. Let's check the employee table also. Employee table right now this EMP name contains Peter, the employee is 3. If I execute, see here the new employee name has been changed from Peter to com. Now let's delete any employee name from this table. I want to delete the James delete. See Ben, I have deleted the Ben and James. Let's check the output, execute, see the new output of this table. We got only 2 records, Charan and Khan. If you are a first time visitor to my channel, please subscribe to get the latest updates. For this video tutorial, I am creating a new Blazor application. Go to File, New, Project, and from the project templates, I am selecting Blazor app. Click Next. Let's give the proper project name, Blazor crud model pop-up. And I want to save this project in this folder code Blazor, which is in the D drive. Click Create. After that, I'm selecting the template called Blazor server app. Click Create. And here the project has been created successfully. Let me close this default window. And if you notice in this project Solution Explorer, there are some default Blazor application folders. Now first, before adding anything to this project, let's check the basic default output of our Blazor application. And here we got the default output of our Blazor application, which contains at the side panel some navigation links. Above that we got one menu controls, and below we got one razor component, which is an index razor component, the default razor component of our application. Now my aim is I will add one new navigation link. When a user clicks that navigation link, I want to open a new razor component. First, let's add that functionality to our application. Switch over to the coding part. Let's stop debugging. To add the navigation link at the sidebar, in the Solution Explorer, notice the shared folder. Expand that one. In the shared folder, there is a nav menu.razor. Open that one. In this razor component, notice that there are predefined navigation links: home, counter, and fetch data. Let's add our navigation link, the list item, which is a crud, and this href I'm adding crud. Href name is. Now when a user clicks this link, I want to open a new razor component, and that razor component I'm adding in this pages folder. Let me expand this pages folder. Right click the mouse, add a razor component I'm selecting, and the component name is crud operation. Enter. And here we got out the razor component crud operation. Now when we want to add this href link, the reference of this href link, I am adding here at page directive between double quotes / the href link name. That's it. Now let's check the new output after adding the new navigation link and the razor component to our application. And here we got our new output after adding the crud navigation link. When a user clicks this link, see here we got this razor component is opening successfully. Now my next step is I want to implement the crud create, read, update and delete functionality with a bootstrap model pop-up in Blazor application. But before that, we require one table. So that table I'm using and the migration functionality. So let's switch over again to the coding part, stop debugging. Now before adding the migration functionality to our application, first we require the necessary database packages. Notice in our project there is a dependencies folder. Let me expand this dependencies folder. If you notice in this dependencies folder there is no any packages. Now let's add the necessary packages for this application. Select the application name, right click the mouse. We don't require this one. Right click the mouse, manage netted packages, select that one. Go to browse and search for, and this is the package I want to install. Select that one, click install. Click OK. Let's accept the license. And notice here in the dependencies folder, the packages folder is created. Let me expand this package folders. See here the package, this package Microsoft.Entity Framework Core has been added successfully to our project. Now the next package I want to install, which is a SQL Server, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. Select that one, click install. Okay, accept the license. And here the SQL Server is also installed successfully. Now we require the tools also. Let's install that one also. Tools I have selected, click install. Okay, accept the license. And here we got all the three packages are installed successfully to our application. Let me minimize this packages folder as well as dependencies, and let's close this netted package window which we don't require anymore. So after adding the necessary packages to our application, next thing I'm adding one class to create a table. So that class I'm adding in this data folder. So select the data folder, right click the mouse, add, I'm selecting class. The class name is the EMP class. I want to create the employee table, and here we got the EMP class. Now in this EMP class, this EMP class contains only the properties. So it's a simple poker class. First let's add the key attribute, Alt Enter. Notice when I click Alt Enter, I got some suggestions. So we require this namespace system.componentModel.data annotations. So click that one. So after adding this namespace, next we require the properties. Prop double tab. The first property name is the integer type, and this one is the EMP ID, employee ID. Prop double tab, string, EMP name. Prop double tab, string, department, and the last one I'm adding integer type is a salary. Just for the demo purpose, I have added only few core properties, which are the column names in our table. So after adding the POCO class to our project, next we require the DB context class also. So that DB context class I am adding in this data folder. Again, select the data folder, right click the mouse, add, click class, and the class name is the application db context.cs, and here we got our application db context class. The purpose I have added this class, I want to inherit this db context class in this application db context. So to inherit in C# we use colon db context. So db context class belongs to namespace called using Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. After adding this package namespace, now we can able to access db context. Then let's create the constructor of this class. Inside this constructor I am adding db context options. This options takes the class name application db context options colon base options. After that, prop double tab db set. In this db set, the entities we are getting from this EMP class. The entities are nothing but the property names, which are the column names for our table. EMP class, and here I am adding the table name. The table name is the EMP table. After that, we require the database connection string. So this EMP table, so here the property EMP table is about the table name. So after adding now the next step is we require one proper data source connection string of the SQL server. To get the proper data source, notice here in our project there is a Server Explorer tab at the corner. Expand that one. In the Server Explorer there is a data connections folder. Right click that one, add connection. Here in the add connection, the data source is Microsoft SQL Server, and the server name, my SQL Server client name is this one. Let's add that one, desktop DBUDEOM. So after adding the server name, I will get the database names from this server. So here we got the databases. I want to migrate the table in this Charan database. So I'm selecting the Charan database. Test connection is succeeded. OK. So here we got the Charan database is added successfully. And also notice in the properties there is a connection string which contains the data source. Let's copy the data source, and this data source we have to add in our project in this app settings.json file. Open that one. In this JSON file, let's add between double quotes connection strings colon curly brackets. Let's add comma here because it's a JSON file. Now here I am adding my connection name is my connection colon between double quotes. Now in this double quotes I am adding the data source which I have copied. That's it. After adding the data source, the connection string in this JSON file, next we need to inject the service in this startup.cs file. Open that one. Let's add first the namespace user in Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. After that, let's inject the service in this configure service function is an interface services dot db context add db context application db context options dot use SQL server method configuration dot get connection string method, and this get connection string method takes the parameter string parameter, so between double quotes. Now in this double quotes I am adding the connection string we are getting from this JSON file. this connection string name my connection is adding here between these double quotes. Let's end with the column. That's it. After adding the add db context service in this startup.cs file, next in blazor application, what are the logic we write is called the services. So that service will add one new folder called services. Select the before that we need to inject. Now before adding the services, first we need to create a table, migrate the table. Go to debug, now before adding the services to this application, first we have to migrate the table, the database. Now, open tools. In the tools, notice the NetJet package manager. In this NetJet package manager, there is a package manager console. Open that one. Here we got the package manage console. Add migration start emp table is the migration name. Enter. So here the migration is created, the start emp table, and now let's update the table, update database. Now before execute this update database, let's check in our SQL server. Let me expand this root folder as well as databases. Let me expand this channel database, tables also. Notice in these tables there is no any emp table. If you check here, our table name is the emp table. There is no any emp table. Now let's run this command, enter, build started and succeeded, and we got a message done, which means this emp table is created in our SQL Server Management Studio. Let me refresh this tables folder, refresh. See, here we got emp table is created successfully. Let's browse this table, select the emp table, right click the mouse, select top 1000 rows, and here we got the results of this newly created emp table. This table contains 4 columns: emp id, emp name, department and salary, which is the emp class property names. Now let's implement the crud functionality with a model pop-up, bootstrap model pop-up, creating the record, reading a record, update the record and delete a record. So first let's again switch over to the coding part. As I told, in blazor applications, the logic we will write in a services. So first let's add a new folder called services. Select the blazor app. To create a folder, add new folder. The folder name is the services. Enter. And here we got our services folder. Now let's add a new class called emp service. Right click the mouse, add class emp services. Enter. And here we got our emp services. Now first in this emp services, let's add our application DB context class. So for that, using blazor, my application name dot data, this application DB context class and the emp class both is in the data folder. So now we can add here protected read only application DB context. Let's create an object for this DB context column. After that, let's create the constructor of this class. Inside this constructor, I am adding application DB context underscore DB. Then we'll add underscore db context is equals to underscore db. That's it. Now here goes the logic. The first service I want to display the EMP records, the employee records, public in the list class. In this list class, the type of elements in the list we are getting from this EMP class, and this service function name is a get employees. Employees, the function name, and this function return underscore db context dot. Here I am adding the table name, which is a EMP table dot to list method. That's it. It's a very simple single line code to display the records from this EMP table. Right now this table contains 0, so we don't have any records. So after that, the next one, to insert the record, add records. So for that I am adding one boolean service function, public boolean add employee. Now in this function I am adding the type of list EMP class and EC add underscore db context dot EMP table dot add method. In this add method I am adding this object EC add colon. After that we need to save the changes whatever we have added. So it's db context dot save changes method. Then this function return true. That's it. In this function we have added to insert a new records in the EMP table. Now before implementing the edit and update delete functionality, first let's insert a new record with a model pop-up. So for that we need to go to the razor component which we have created, crud operation. In this crud operation, let's add using input the namespaces here, blazor.data, the folder data, and also I require the service also. Blazor, the service is in the services folder. Then at using inherit, I want to inherit this EMP services, inherits owning component base. In this component base, the service we are getting from this EMP service as the service name. Here we don't require any columns. Then here in the code, to display the employee records, I am adding one list class. In this list class, the type of elements we are getting from this EMP class. Let's create the object display data. Display data column. Then here I am adding on initializer function protected override on initialize, and this function deletes this default line. In this function I am adding the service, and to display the service we need this get employees function name. So let's call this service function in this razor component. Display data is equals to services, not services, service property dot. Notice here the function name get employees. That's it. Now to display the service table, I am adding one table. The class, I am adding the bootstrap class here called table. TR. In this TR I am adding the table headers. The table headers first is the employee ID, second one is the employee name, and the third one is a department, and the fourth one is the salary. After that, to bind the data from database, I am using at for each loop variable item in. I am adding this list object display data between curly brackets, and again tr td at item dot. Notice here, once I click dot, I got all the property names. First is the emp id I want to display. The second one at item dot emp name. The third column is at item dot department. The last one I require the salary at item dot salary. That's it. It's a simple table with a bootstrap table class to display the records from this emp table. Now here I am adding one button control. When a user clicks that button control, I want to open a new pop-up window to insert the records. So that pop-up window I want to implement using Bootstrap. So let's open the getbootstrap.com. The getbootstrap.com is the official website, and all the components we can use freely because it's an open source toolkit. So we don't require any license to use this component. Get started, and the version I'm using 4.5. Here, notice here the components, click that one. In these components, there is a model, click that one. Now here we got different types of models, the examples. Just for the demo purpose, I'm adding only the simple model pop-up. This is the code for this above example. Let's copy this code and add this code here at the top. Above that, first I require one button control. Add new record. Below that, I'm pasting the model pop-up code. Here one important point, we need to add one property called display style display block. So after adding this display block style, next, now in the button control I am adding a class button. Let's add the primary. The class name I'm adding primary. After that, when a user clicks this button control, so I'm adding on click function. Here the function name is a show pop-up. Let's create a function, copy that one. Here I'm adding void show pop-up return true. The first I want to implement, this is not return, this one is declare variable boolean variable I'm adding here is a pop-up is equals to, first I'm adding the false. So when page loads, I don't want to show the pop-up window, so that's why I'm adding false here. Now when a user clicks this button show pop-up, I want to display pop-up is equals to true. Now let's check the output. This, when a user clicks the button control, the pop-up window is opening or not. Click code. Oops, here no service for, oops, here I'm sorry for that. We have to inject the service name in startup.cs. using blazor my application name dot services, that this EMP service we need to inject here in this configure services dot add scope. In this add scope I'm adding the service name is the EMP services. Now let's check the output. There is a component on this application. Click navigation link crud, and here we got the new output. Notice here the pop-up is opening. So let's hide this one first. Close, stop debugging. And if pop-up I'm closing the pop-up here. So when a user clicks this pop-up, this one falls first. Click crud. So now the pop-up window is not showing. When a user clicks this add new record, so it's showing the model pop-up. Now we have not added the close functionality to the pop-up. Let's add that one also. Stop debugging. Let's add another function called while show pop-up close pop-up. This one is a close pop-up. Instead of true, let's close this one false. And add this function here at on click is equals to save changes, and here also add this function save changes. And here also the button at on click close pop-up. That's it. We have added the functionality to close the pop-up. Let's check the output. Go to the crud razor component. When a user clicks the button control add new record, here we got the new model pop-up. When a user clicks the close or close anything, it's closing. Now let's add the functionality to insert the records. So stop debugging. We need to call the this add employee, which is the insert record service function. Let's call here in this code. I'm adding one more function called while insert record. To insert the record, we need a object for the EMP class. EC insert is equals to, let's call this as a object insert is equals to new EMP class. Object insert dot EMP ID is equals to 0. This is a very important step. If you don't add this EMP ID is equals to 0, you will get an error. Then let's call the service here, service dot add employee. Inside this service I'm adding obj insert. After insert the record, I want to display the records on the razor component in this table. So I am adding the same line here in this insert record functionality. Now in the blazor component, when we want to post data, we require a tag called edit form. So let's add that one here in the body. I'm adding edit form at model. The model name is obj insert, and here on valid submit is equals to our function name insert record. Let's close this edit form here. So we don't require this body. Let's copy this one. Inside this body, I want to add the text box elements. Here I am adding a small table. Inside this table, with a border is equals to 1, dr table data, employee name, td, input type is equals to text property, and the placeholder, enter employee name, and here I want to bind the data with bind is equals to obj insert dot. Notice here I got the properties here. Let's close this text box element. Another td for the department. Let's copy this one. Enter department name dot the department, and the last one is for the salary. Salary input type, enter salary here, and binding the property called salary. That's it, we have written the code. That's it. Let's check the output. Run this application. Click crud. Add new record. Oops, here. Let's align this one. We require another tr here. tr. Let's close this tr. Close this tr. Now we'll check the output again. I'm restarting the server. Good. Add new record. So now let's enter a new employee record. Now let's insert a new record. What we'll do is, we don't require this close here because we already have here. Let's give some title. Stop debugging. The model title is employee table, and we don't require this close button. Let's delete that one. And here the button type, we have to add submit. And see here the button control is outside the edit form. Sorry for that. Copy this one. Let's add here below the div. Now let's check the new output. Add new record. The employee name is Charan, the department is IT, and salary is 50,000. Let's before insert this record, let's check the table again. This EMP table right now is 0 rows. Let's insert, save changes. So here we got the Charan details is inserted successfully. And here also let's execute the table again. We got the Charan details. Let's insert the another record, James, and the department is sales is that 25,000. Save changes. The second record, James, has been inserted successfully. Let's check in our database table, execute. So here we got the James record has been inserted successfully. Now the next operation, to edit and update the records. To edit the records of a particular employee, we get that employee record details first, then only we'll update that employee details. So let's add that functionality. Stop debugging. Now here in the table, after the TD, I'm adding one more TD for the button edit. And let's add the class for this button. Class is equals to button info. Copy this one. And this button for the delete the record. I'm adding a new class for this delete button, which is a danger. So now let's check the output. This edit and delete links are added or not. Crud. So here we got the edit and delete functionality. Now when a user clicks to edit any particular employee details, for example, if a user clicks the edit to change the employee details James, click edit, I want to open a new pop-up window to fetch all the records, to display all the employee records of this James on the pop-up menu. So let's add the coding part and go to services. I'm adding one new function in this EMP service. The new function name is public. I'm adding EMP class, get EMP details. To get a particular employee details, we require the EMP ID. So I'm adding one EMP ID integer value here. Let's create an object for this EMP class. EMP class edit object is equals to new EMP class. Then this function return underscore db context dot emp table dot first our default function u dot so lambda expression emp id double equals to I'm adding this variable here column. That's it. It's a very simple single line code to fetch the record of a particular employee. Now let's call this function service get emp details in this razor component. And here after the insert I'm adding one more function called void edit record inside this edit record, I'm adding my class name, VC object. Now in this function, I'm adding this variable obj insert to fetch the record. Obj insert is equals to VC object. Then we need to show pop-up is true. Pop-up is equals to true. Then we need to add this function in this edit. At on click is equals to, here the function edit record. Here I am adding item. This variable item here I am adding. That's it. Let's check the output. Crud. Let's check the edit. See, here we got the James details we are getting. For click Charan edit, here we got the Charan records. Let's add a new record called Peter is the HR and the salary is 35,000. Save changes. Click edit, we got the Peter details. Now I want to implement the update functionality of a particular selected employee details. Let's do that one also. Close this one. Stop debugging. The EMP services. Here I am adding one more function to update the record. Public boolean update EMP class update details. Let's declare variable get EMP is equals to get the particular selected employee details. Instead of writing the same code, I'm calling here. This one is the update details. Update details dot EMP ID. Then if get EMP is not equals to null, which means the record is empty, the selected employee record is not empty. If get EMP is not equals to null, then I want to save changes. Get EMP dot, I want to update EMP name, update details dot EMP name, get EMP dot department is equals to update details dot department, get EMP dot salary is equals to update details dot salary. After that, we need to save changes underscore db context dot save changes method. Then in the else part, return false. Make here the return true. That's it. This is a code to update the employee record, selected employee record. Let's call this function in this razor component. Again, here I'm not creating a new function to call the service or the update service. I'm adding that service in this insert record only. Let's declare a variable object update is a boolean type. If you check here, this update EMP is boolean type, so let's add the boolean false if object insert, if it's object insert dot emp id is greater than 0. If the employee id is found, I want to update that record. So here I'm adding obj update is equals to, let's call the update service function update emp. In this update emp I'm adding object insert. Then once the record is updated successfully, I want to close a pop-up window. Pop-up is equals to false. And here in the else part, I'm adding this function to insert the record. That's it, we have called the update service in this blazor component. Let's check the output. Go to crud. Now here I want to update the Peter salary. Instead of 35,000, I'm adding 38,000. So right now this Peter salary is 35,000. I'm changing to 38,000. Save changes. See here, 38,000. Let's check in our database table also. So Peter salary is 38,000. Let's edit the department of James is IT. Save changes. See here, we got the IT. Let's check the output. Right now the James is department is sales. Let's execute this table again. So now the department has been changed from sales to IT. The last functionality, we delete the record, the selected employee record. Let's stop debugging, go to services. We'll create one new function in this service called delete the employee record. The function, instead of writing the same code, copy this one, paste here, this one, delete emp, this one, delete employee, copy this one and paste here, get emp. Here, to delete a particular employee record, db context dot remove method. I'm removing get emp. After that, I'm adding the save changes. That's it. Let's call this function, the service function in this blazor component. I'm adding new function in this component. Void delete emp record, emp class, EC object. Let's call the service service dot delete emp. Inside this emp, I'm adding EC object. After that, I want to clear the table first. So that table we are displaying from this list object. So display data dot clear method. Once the record is cleared, the table is cleared, I want to refresh the table. For that, to display new updated details of the table. Now let's add this function here in this delete at on click is equals to add the function here with the item. This variable I'm adding here. That's it. Here we got two errors. That's it, we have done the complete coding part. Let's check the output. And here we got the final output, crud. Right now in this table contains 3 records. If we check in our database table, I'm executing the table. See here we got 3 records, Charan, James and Peter. Charan, James and Peter. Now let's add a new record. Ben, his department is sales and his salary is 18,000. Save changes. See here we got the Ben record has been added successfully. If we check in our database table, execute, see Ben details is inserted successfully. Let's edit the Ben details, or let's edit the Peter details. The Peter name I want to change to Peter to com. Save changes. See here the employee name has been changed from Peter to com. Let's check the employee table also. Empty table, right now this EMP name contains Peter, the employee is 3. If I execute, see here the new employee name has been changed from Peter to com. Now let's delete any employee name from this table. I want to delete the James delete. See, Ben, I have deleted the Ben and James. Let's check the output, execute. See the new output of this table, we got only 2 records, Charan and com. That's it. In this video's tutorial I have explained how to implement the step-by-step process to implement the crud functionality, creating the record, reading the record, update and delete functionality in Blazor application using Bootstrap model pop-up. That's it. Thanks for watching and please subscribe my channel.